excited to introduce our guest today, Todd Baratz. I screwed it up again, didn't I?
You didn't. You
I
can
didn't.
also say
Okay.
whatever you want. I
Okay,
really don't
thank you
care.
so much.
No
Also
one will
known,
care.
Todd, also known as Your Diagnosed Sense, and I love that Instagram name so much. Todd is a certified
Thanks.
sex therapist, licensed individual and couples therapist, and a writer who specializes in relationships and sex. We are huge fans of his posts and style and cannot wait to chat with him today. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I'm a huge fan of both of you as well.
Oh
So
my
I'm
gosh.
excited.
Wait, so I feel like there's like, it's interesting because there's like Instagram therapy is really big. We have a lot of thoughts about
hmm
Instagram therapy, as you probably do as well. And I was dying because we put a little question box up of like, what do you want to ask Todd? And
Yeah,
like
what did
tons
you
of people
get?
wrote things in, but a
So
lot of people
much.
wanted to talk about attachment style, and we were
Oh God.
hysterically laughing.
It's like the last thing I want to talk about.
That's
It's
amazing.
not that I don't want to talk about it. It's just that it's like I talk about it all the time in session with clients.
Yeah.
Yes,
Mhm.
it's
But I
I
just want to
don't
talk about
the fucking chokehold that attachment has on
it's
people
wild.
Yeah.
because of Instagram therapy. I
That
don't
should be
understand
studied.
that. What is it? Why
Yes.
is everyone
That
obsessed
needs
with
to be studied.
attachment?
Well, you have to
I don't
attach
know.
yourself to something, right? If there are these attachment struggles,
I mean, people
easier
should
to attach
we should
yourself.
study the attachment to attachment theory.
What
Yes. It's
is
so
Oh
this?
meta.
God. Ugh,
Wow.
it's too meta. I can't. I take it back. I'm
It's
not
too
studying that.
meta, right? It's like
I
an
Okay,
refuse.
exception.
so let's
I
talk about
refuse.
how
But we
10
could talk about it.
yeah,
I'm
but I
fine
mean,
with it.
just like 5 years ago, right? We're all just like doing therapy. And then, like, things got big, right? Like, there's a lot of therapists involved. TikTok
hmm
therapists are huge. And now we have clients that
TikTok.
come in. Oh, yeah, I know.
I
I
know.
have clients that
I
come
know.
in every day that's like, oh, I discovered this thing. I read this thing on
Yes.
TikTok and now I'm autistic. And I'm like, it's not
I
necessarily how this works.
know.
And although I love everyone talking about lived experience, I think it's so fucking valuable. We're getting these like short little things, and you have this massive following, and you have sort of done this thing where you're like, I'm going to say really uncomfortable truths.
Yeah, I mean, people are really armed with a lot of information that they're misusing. And the thing is, it's not bad information. It's just like misapplied and overapplied and misguided and misplaced and displaced. And it's a lot. Which is great on the one hand that we're finally talking about things that we didn't once talk about that really needed to be talking about, like trauma and attachment. But now it's just like, it's a lot, it's too much. And I think it's actually hurting people more than it's helping people. It's kind of having the same effect that not talking about it had, which is creating shame, which is the irony, which is wild to me. That the more information now people have about their mental health, relational health, sexual health, the more shame they're feeling because they're not
Yes.
measuring up to the information that they're getting because it's presented in such an idealistic, aspirational way that's like actually not real life, which is so fascinating to me. That just how information overload that's necessary and important can actually create just as much harm as the lack of information. So
Ugh,
wild.
100%. I think it's like the fact that people are so interested in figuring themselves out, right? I think, maybe generations before us just kind of like swept a lot under the rug. So the fact that
hmm
everyone wants to figure themselves out, I think is wonderful, but completely agree with you that we have to do it in like an intentional way. And we're getting just these tidbits of information and attaching ourselves to them.
Yeah. I mean, and same thing with the attachment thing that we were just talking about. Like, attachment is really important, but the way that people are applying it to their lives is like so reductive. Like, how do I get into a secure relationship? I'm like, I don't know. Like, it's not science fiction. There's no such thing. Like, I don't know what a
Yeah.
secure relationship is or
Yeah.
secure attachment. But people have invested in the idea that there is like this this way of being with people that can be unencumbered and just unconditional and safe and great, which okay, it should be safe, but in terms of it being secure, that's just such a silly concept to me because relationships are so uncertain. Like, they're
Yes.
fundamentally uncertain. Like, how can we be secure with something uncertain? We can't.
Yes.
Mm.
We
It's not
always
possible.
we always talk about how that like no matter what, being in a relationship is a risk that you take.
Big, yeah,
It's
always.
it's a risk, like you cannot guarantee that that relationship is going to work out
No,
Mhm.
no matter what. Like the
no,
other
and
person has autonomy in their decisions and
yeah. I mean, and this might sound terrible, but the reality is these days it seems like relationship. I mean, the idea of it working out needs to change. I mean,
Right.
people are the ideas that it'll work out, meaning until I die. And it's like,
Right.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I was in a relationship and now I'm single and dating, and I'm like, fuck. I just want to find somebody. And then I'm like, wait a minute, it's probably going to end, whether maybe in 10 years, and then I'm going to be 50 and single again, and then I'm going to have to figure it out all over again. I mean, things aren't lasting forever anymore, but I
No.
think we still all want that.
We do. And I
do.
think so much of it is fantasy, right? I think one of the
Yeah.
largest issues we have, and especially when people write in, is it's like, well, how do I not feel anxious in my relationship? How do I not feel? First of all, I can't make you not feel fucking anything. Like, you
Right.
fucking
How do
feel
I
all the
not feel?
Yeah.
Those questions.
Gotta
I
be
do
a
Q&A, and
robot.
those are all the questions. How do I
Same.
not
It
feel
is.
this? How do I not feel?
And so it is this very
Zoloft.
interesting. Todd, did you know I have a Zoloft tattoo?
Stop. Let me see.
It's
It's
incredible.
Zoloft with
Wait, I can't.
mushrooms. Wait, I'll send you a picture of it afterwards.
Please do.
It's a bottle of
That's
Zoloft with mushrooms
amazing.
growing out of it.
Ooh.
And
What's the
really
story there?
Zoloft and mushrooms. And
Zoloft and mushrooms.
right,
Okay.
yeah, and
Quick
all
and
the
easy.
different stuff we do to heal. But yeah, it's true. You want a little numbing, sertraline, go for it, baby. But I think part of it is like the world's on fucking fire. It is
Fire.
what it is, and everyone's so obsessed with becoming like their healthiest self. And you're in
Obsessed.
LA. Everyone's really obsessed with becoming their healthiest self in LA.
Obsessed, but they're so unhealthy. They're so unhealthy. Speaking of mushrooms, I mean, that's a totally different. Everyone is doing mushrooms. I'm not saying that's unhealthy, by the way,
Yeah.
but I'm saying everyone is doing mushrooms. I just got mushrooms the other day, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to take these, and they're going to solve all of my life problems because everyone's obsessed with mushrooms. And I'm like, I haven't tried a drug for a long time, so I'm kind of nervous. But are they going to change my life?
No. I'm so
No.
sorry. But it's
Yeah.
one of those things where, but we hear the same thing with ketamine right now for trauma, right? Like, and we heard the same
Yeah.
thing with EMDR, and you heard the same thing before
EMDR.
that with fucking CBT is the only thing for anxiety. And the reality is we're all looking for a goddamn miracle that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Right. A solution to just being alive. It's like,
it's not in EMDR and it's not in mushrooms. And all those things are very helpful and they might help. I don't think anything's going to be perfect, including that relationship. People think that if I get into the perfect relationship, it will solve everything else.
And also I think there's this expectation of like, one day I'm going to get to this. If I do all of these things, I'm going to get to this point where I am reaching this like ultimate happiness and it's not going to change. And I'm going to be the best version of myself. And I'm not going to struggle with anything. You're going to be your best self, which I think there's times in which you can reach that for points, right? I feel really happy, feel really good about where I am right now, but things always change.
Yeah, I mean, this sense of 100% healed thing is wild. Which is weird. It's just because like everyone's like, don't be a perfectionist, but yet everyone's striving to be a perfectionist. It's the most bizarre thing. But that's basically what it is. And people want to be 100% healed, get to this like place that's perfect. But they're like, but I'm not a perfectionist.
Right.
Like, you're describing perfectionism.
Are we
like we're culturally describing perfection.
Are we just in one big circle jerk? What's happening?
Yes.
It seems that way. I don't know. The way that I've come to understand some of this stuff is like really through this intergenerational trauma, the idea of intergenerational trauma, and just through a cultural, viewing that as through a cultural lens in terms of like so many years of minimizing trauma for people, not talking about feelings, etc. And this is our trauma reaction culturally, is we're reducing things. We're totally freaked out because we don't want to go through what we went through or what our parents went through or what our grandparents went through or whoever was an alcoholic and, we didn't call them an alcoholic, or whoever left or whoever was abandoned, our mother's mother, whatever. And we're all like working through that shit. Especially in the context now of a culture that's like, never again am I going to do this. And instead we're confusing all of these idealistic things as health, when it's just anxiety about repeating some of this but this older cultural trauma. I don't know. That's the way that I've come to think about it, but I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with that.
No, I think that makes so much sense, that it's like, it's protective for us in some way. We're like swinging so far in the opposite direction of, I don't want to repeat this. And so
Right.
I'm going to do everything I possibly can to get to this place where, I am my perfect self and I don't repeat this pattern. But it's a reaction to the trauma, the intergenerational trauma that we've gone through. Any sort of reaction speaks to the fact that there's something that's not healed internally.
Yeah, totally. And everybody is just freaked the fuck out. Everyone is
Yeah.
freaked out. All of this stuff is anxiety. It's just,
Yeah.
it's anxiety and obsession.
Yeah.
And it's like reframed, repackaged as health, as wellness. And it's just anxiety. And rightfully so. I mean,
Yeah.
things are
Yeah.
scary. I mean, I don't know. I'm freaked out by all of the things. It's
Right.
scary stuff. Whatever.
In some ways, it's like the false sense of control, right? If I can get to this higher self, if I can be the self-healed or whatever the fuck these things we're talking about, then I can control something.
Yeah.
Because you're right, like I'm freaked out.
Yeah. There's a lot to be freaked out about. But yeah, it is about control. It's about wanting to feel safe. And people just don't feel safe.
Yeah.
No. Okay, so well, I want to get to some questions. And some
Please
of this
do.
is going to be myth busting, but
Great.
something that you talk a lot about online, which I really love, is like like it's okay to be clingy. Like let's talk about
Mm.
being clingy. A lot of people love that you talk about that. We had a bunch of questions that were written in about this. So let's start out with, why do you think being clingy has such a bad rep?
It was just so interesting to me, the whole clingy thing. I mean, every single day, I don't know about the two of you, but my clients are asking a question about a text message. Should I say, I don't think I should say this because I don't want to come across as blank, or I want to withhold this part of myself because I don't want them to reject me, basically, is what they're saying. And this idea of clingy, of feeling too much or caring too much about somebody, it's anxiety about being rejected for expressing what we want, closeness, intimacy, communication, etc. I think because most people have so much experience being rejected in the face of expressing some of those needs. Um, and also, we're coming from a cultural place where 5, 10 years ago, emotions and relationships weren't trending like they are now. There weren't memes satirizing what it meant to feel or be depressed. Like now, mental health is like funny and like people laugh about it and share memes, and it's like a thing. Um, so I think people are just generally stigmatized about having needs, wanting closeness, intimacy, etc., which is totally ironic because like literally the whole world is structured around that.
Right.
And like industries are like booming because of that need
Yes.
and desire. But I think again, people are generally freaked out.
Mm,
I think that makes so much sense, that there's this like shift culturally and within dating and relationships, that like, and I think dating and relationships maybe have to catch up a little bit in terms of like how I'm going to express exactly how I feel in dating, and put it out there, and that it will be, it will be received or it won't be received, but just the sense of like I'm comfortable enough with myself to put this out there and know how I feel about something. And that and maybe we change the term clingy, right? Like the term clingy has some sort of like
It's so
um
negative.
yeah, there's such like a negative, as opposed to like I'm just expressing my needs, right? Or I'm just expressing how I feel.
I have to say, I'm very clingy, but like,
I'm so clingy.
Yeah,
I
me
am
too.
so clingy. I'm so unbelievably clingy. Jen and I met because I fucking went up to her grad school and was clingy to her because I was like, I can't
It
make it through
was.
these 2 years without
That's
a
cute.
fucking friend because everyone here looks weird. And I was like, I can't. This is gonna
Where
be
did you go to
so.
grad school?
Thomas Jefferson.
Thomas Jefferson in
Okay.
Philadelphia. And yeah, just everyone was like already there, jerking themselves off about how smart they are. And I was like, that.
So
And I
true.
was like, I don't even know kind of how I got in here. I'm not entirely sure. I have like the world's worst learning disability, but I'm kind of funny. And I think I just kind of
That's
somehow got
definitely
in
how you get. Did you make jokes during
the entire interview. Yeah, they
yeah,
thought I
good
was
job.
great.
Yeah, yeah.
And so somehow got in. Also, the head of the program forgot about my interview. And so I showed up and it was just like the dean of admissions who was not in the program. And I think him and I just were like laughing about. And so I'm
Connected.
pretty sure the only reason I got in. But so I'm sitting there like, oh fuck, I have nothing to say to these people. I am not gonna read. I'm here are the things that's probably not gonna happen for me. And I was clingy as shit. And you wanna know what? I'm gonna say clingy has worked for me my entire life.
I mean, it's worked for you. How, when you say it's worked for you, what do you mean? Like you formed relationships, right?
I form relationships. I have
Right.
a great circle. I have a good
Yeah.
relationship.
It's
Yeah, like
necessary. We have
It's
to cling to people. It's if you want a relationship, you have to cling to people.
100%. And I have to say, when I, like when Emily was clinging to me, I appreciate that. I like appreciate someone who's going to be open
Same.
about how they feel, who comes up to me and says, I'm going to be your best friend. You don't have a choice in this. I
Yeah, like
appreciate that.
that's sweet and nice and like comforting.
Yes.
Like, okay, somebody likes me.
Yes. It felt great.
Yeah, I
And
mean, I always joke with new friends, I'm like, I'm into codependent friendship because I'm like, I need to talk
the
to you every
best.
day.
Yeah.
But, like, I mean, that's another reason why I don't like the word codependent, but no, we need to cling, and people are so ashamed of their desire to cling, and I think everybody wants to cling, but they're just scared they're going to get rejected.
Right.
Okay, so that brings us to our next question. You ready for this one? Let's go a little deeper with this topic. How do you draw a line between showing up as your authentic self, flaws and all, and changing patterns of unhealthy communication?
What does that mean? Wait, showing up as your authentic self
Right.
and changing patterns
Okay,
of
right. So,
unhealthy
like, what's the
communication.
difference between like being yourself, asking for your needs, and like calling someone 30,000 times? Like, that's how I interpret that.
Oh, okay. Well, don't call someone 30,000 times.
Right.
I mean,
That's how
I don't
I
know. But like I think, I often have these conversations and I'm like with my clients and like, but I don't know if this is too much. And I'm like, what is
Yes.
too much. I think these are self-evident truths. Like we know that, okay, you don't call somebody over and over and over and over again. That's anxiety
Yeah.
and that's going to push somebody away. But I mean, I think we all have to figure out what that is. And if you don't know what that, like the boundaries between normal communication and communication that's really anxious and freaked out and triggered, I think that's the conversation that, we should be having or the person should be having with their therapist
Yeah.
about what's happening, that they're not able to make that distinction, question
Yeah.
of poor judgment. But, in terms of showing up as your authentic self, I mean, the reality is if you want to form a relationship with somebody, it's just like, you got to do it.
Yeah.
And it's a challenge again, because I don't think, unfortunately, many people have the experience where they're having these really deep and intimate relationships with others. And that's why, therapy is so helpful, because we get to have that type of relationship that most of us don't get to have, where we just share ourselves. And then it becomes normalized. I mean, the two of you know, and it becomes normalized. And it's through that relationship that we can say, oh, wait, I'm actually not that terrible. I'm like a decent person. I'm like, don't need to be ashamed of all of myself. And it's the same thing with any other relationship. I mean, if we want a relationship to feel good and to feel close, we have to open up and, don't do it the first time if you don't want to, but
Yes.
it's got to happen at some point.
Yes. And I'm sorry, I interrupted.
Go for it. I was done.
I was just going to say, what I always think about too, I think, especially at the beginning of a relationship, it's so much more challenging to be your authentic self, right? You want this person to like you. And so you're like holding back things. You're not farting in front of them. There's just so much that you're
It's the worst part of being single, honestly, farting. I take gas X like M&Ms. It's like, I cannot. It's so uncomfortable.
That's right. It is. So that's like a perfect example of like, we hold so much back, and that when we're at the beginning of the relationship, obviously we want to put our best foot forward, but to hold back so much of yourself and to create a relationship based on like holding so much back, that like how much of the relationship in and of itself is authentic then, if you are holding a big part of your authentic self back as you're forming that relationship. Then what happens as you get deeper, right, and you're starting to show up as your authentic self when you have formed a relationship not as your authentic self. So I always think about that, and I think about that in terms of, when we're asking friends for advice, like, what should I say in this situation? Or like, how do I respond to this? And if you're showing up as what your friend would do, as opposed to what you would do, you're forming a relationship based on what they want, not what you want.
Yeah. So moral of the story, you should fart in front of people the first
Bottom
time you
line
meet them.
is fart on the first date.
Yeah,
Well,
don't
because
hold in farts.
if the person laughs and like can make like a fun about it, you know what I
Right.
mean? Then like
As opposed to like, oh, you
information, right?
farted.
Right.
Yeah.
If they never
I mean, I
call
find
you, yeah.
the friends that I fart with, so I have to fart at the beginning, so then I know that I can just continuously, like, it's not a thing I have to think about.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But you have
like,
to break the ice.
Yeah.
You have to somehow with your farts, like throw the gas X out, let it rip.
You know what? You're right. I'm not showing up as my authentic self. Oh,
You're welcome.
no, I didn't realize. Thank you.
You're
Yeah,
welcome.
free therapy.
Anytime. Yeah, anytime. Open for business.
I mean, honestly, that's really the way I should date. I mean, it would probably be a lot quicker.
Exactly. Right?
Okay, so
I should put that in my Hinge profile.
I fart often.
I fart on the first date.
be prepared.
Be prepared. I have an actual body that just makes body sounds.
Right.
But okay, so that brings us to another wonderful question. How many chances to give a flaky dude, but chemistry is good and hard to find?
Oh,
Everyone wants a
God.
number.
I don't
Everyone wants a
even
handbook.
know. I don't know. I mean, flaky but good chemistry. Isn't that even an interesting topic in itself? I had a recent, he wasn't flaky, he was just horrible at communicating. Horrible. And like, I don't know, I'm a literal communicator for like, this is what we do, we communicate. And so it's a pet peeve of mine. But when we were together, it felt like there was good chemistry. But I don't know. I mean, you have to just figure out what works for you, right? I don't know how many times. It depends. I mean, flake what? If they don't show up, that's it. Like
Out. They're out.
they're out. Like one shot about showing up bare
Totally.
minimum. But flaky, like I'm busy, not responding to a text message. I don't know. Depends on how much you can tolerate. I have a very low tolerance for that.
I would too.
Yeah.
I can't do it.
And I think that's the thing, all of us, like everything that we get from clients all the time, that we get from listeners is we, at the end of the day, everyone seems to be wanting a handbook. How many
Yeah.
times? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Like, because if I had some number, then this would be easier as opposed to like truly trusting myself to be like, this dude does not fucking care, right? Like, and also half the reason it's so goddamn hot is because he ignores me half the time, and then it's fucking sexy when he gives me attention, and that
Yeah.
in on itself turns
Right.
me
It's like
on,
the
right?
anxiety, it like gets you going.
No, I'm having flashbacks. Sorry. More Zoloft right now. I mean, it's really hard, but I think some of these questions, the handbooks, the how many times, the how do I not feel, I think it's a reflection of how little people know about relationships and about themselves. Because the question, I mean, there's so many implicit questions in some of these questions that I know is such an annoying therapist-y thing to think and to say, but like, how many times, when do I say no? You know, so it's like, so how do you know yourself in terms of, so is this making you pre-disappointed that you're going to have to say no to somebody because you're really alone and you don't want to say no because you haven't been touched in 3 months, and here's this person, they're finally hugging and kissing you, and but they're not showing up for you, and like there's more of a story here than the questions that people are asking. And I always try, as I'm sure the two of you do, is to redirect to that story as opposed to the how many times or how do I not feel, why don't you want to feel, what's so horrible about feeling anxious sometimes, like, you know, there's a lot more going on here that reflects a lack of knowledge, self-knowledge, knowledge about relationships. And then as a result, a lot of anxiety because people are like, I don't know what to do. This terrible thing is going to happen. And it's kind of sad. It's really sad. I think we are lucky because we went to school for it. I don't want to make assumptions about the two of it. I'm sure you've gone to therapy. And so like, we're like professional life liver people. Whereas, you know, I think most people, which is so fucked up, is they're encountering this information when they're like 30.
Yes.
You know, after decades of like being gaslit and like just oppressed by all of this stuff. But I've been thinking about this for decades, you know, and I'm sure the two of you have as well, right?
Oh yeah, we always talk about how like when grad school was just completely life-changing for us. Just learning this at like high speeds was wild because you understand so much more about yourself and relationships. And to be able to share that with people is incredible because you're like watching people experience it for the first time. But yeah, I think it takes a lot of time, and it takes the fact that we really know this and can hone in on this. And, you know, if those questions come up for us, we can ask ourselves those questions. Well, what is going on for me? How am I feeling about this? But I think it's so much.
And then I'll still feel freaked out.
And then I'll still be freaked out. And then my anxiety will still be really high.
But it won't kill me. But you
and
can
also know that's okay.
And I'll have information about it. So
exactly.
Right? Like, okay, so I farted in front of this person. They were totally freaked out. And now I feel embarrassed. And like, still, like, it's not going to kill me. Like, I will truly not die of embarrassment or anxiety as much as it feels like I might.
And fuck them.
And fuck them.
Seriously.
Right? If they're like, I'm done, you farted, like,
goodbye.
It's not a good
This
fit.
isn't gonna work.
Yeah, this won't work. Exactly. This is not gonna work. I have to hold farts in for the rest of time.
There's nothing wrong with me. Yeah, such little information people have. People need
Yeah.
more information.
And we're putting
Um,
it out there.
Yes.
okay. Ready? You ready for the next one?
Yeah.
Well, okay, it's so hard because yeah, you're like I'm sitting here thinking like,
No, ask
yeah,
the questions though.
okay, but I'm sitting here thinking like it is just like so. It's yeah, okay. We need a lot more story. All right, what is this idea that people you might find boring are actually healthy?
People you might find boring are healthy. I get this a lot too, and I'm like, I feel like I'm like stumped because there's this thing that's been happening where people are it's boring because you're addicted to drama, or no, you're addicted, what am I trying to say? You're addicted to drama, so boring
You're addicted to
relationships
dysfunction.
that are, yeah, so relationships that don't have dysfunction are going to feel boring.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, that's not how it works. I mean, I don't know, and please disagree with me, but like,
I guess it could be, but it's not every time. I don't know. Sometimes people are fucking boring.
I was about to say, if your relationship is boring, it's
Yeah.
not because it's healthy and, it just happens to lack drama. It's because it's probably boring.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I see many couples and I'm like, what did you do this week? And they're like, well, we watched TV together. And I'm like, did you go out? And like, did you do anything? And they're initially coming to me because they have no desire for each other and they're unhappy. And I'm like, okay, so does it make you happy to sit on the couch every single day and your pajamas and watch TV together? And like, as I'm saying this, I'm like, oh, that's all I want to do.
I know. I was
But
thinking the
like,
same
if they don't
thing.
want to fuck each other and they're miserable, I'm like, you have to go out and do things if you're
Yes.
bored. So it's like, it's not, boring doesn't equal healthy. Boring is probably boring.
Mhm.
But it's so interesting, this kind of sense of, well, if it doesn't have drama and you're addicted to drama, then healthy relationships will feel boring. And I'm like, that's not how it works.
And it doesn't have to be like one or the other, right?
No.
Where like, yeah, you're gonna have times in your relationship where you're bored. That's just
Yeah.
part of being in a relationship at times. But
Right. Totally.
I think that once again, I think this goes back to the like quick fix of, or like labels that we put on things. Because I feel bored in the relationship one time, like, is that, something wrong? But it's such a spectrum, right? We like go in and out of certain feelings in our relationships. Yeah, I completely agree with you. But on the topic of, yeah, maybe it's just boring. And also, I think it sounds awesome to sit on the couch and watch Netflix in your pajamas, just on.
But if
Yeah,
you
my
have a fun
favorite thing to do.
partner, and if you have a fun partner, that is a fun fucking night, right? Like
Yeah.
if you are
Yeah.
like, if you're actually watching it together, not sitting there on your phones and watching like living in totally different universes, if you're watching something together and you're having fun together and like fucking eating some goddamn popcorn and fucking around, right? Like,
Popcorn.
yeah.
As soon as I start eating popcorn, I have like 5 bags. I can't.
It's
It's like
so
hard to
good.
stop.
It's
I don't
good.
even know it.
It's a lovely treat. And your dry sense of humor makes me really laugh.
Yeah, it's so good.
But I wonder if clients are ever like, is he fucking with me? Like,
They are sometimes, and it's like, I don't know, maybe it's just not a good match. I don't know.
also, how is that translate? Because we went to LA one time and no one gets our sarcasm. They're like really struggling with it. I'm wondering how it translates in LA.
I don't know. I haven't really noticed about that. Are people funny in LA? Yeah, I think they are.
Okay.
I don't know.
we had like this,
Um,
our weird thing was like, we went every time we went out to dinner while we were there, we were like going out to like nice places. We were being taken out from this thing we were doing. And like every waiter or waitress kept being like, you guys are really nice. And we were like, we're just literally being humans. And I was like, oh, I wonder
because
if
like half the people in LA don't eat and they're just frustrated
They're
and
mad. Yeah.
they're mad because they're hungry.
Yeah.
Yeah, too much
yeah.
green juice.
There's
That green juice isn't doing it for them.
yeah.
No.
Okay.
But one thing just about that is that,
Yeah.
I think also people are saying my relationship is boring, but honestly, like life is boring sometimes, and people are
Yes.
putting all this pressure on their relationships to like, I don't know, be a fucking firework and like woo them all the time. And it's just not, your relationship cannot and will not ever do that. Maybe the first like couple of years, like you'll be in this honeymoon phase, which will be real. And then you're going to be in a disillusioned disappointment phase and everything's going to be boring and you're going to need to change it up and you need to have friends and you need to get a life outside your relationship, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's really hard. I mean, things are going to be boring. And a relationship is not going to entertain us. And our partner is not there for entertainment either. They're your partner, they're your companion, they're your teammate, blah, blah, blah. But if you are bored, don't assume that it's your partner's fault or it's because your relationship is boring. Maybe your life is boring. I don't know.
What else are you doing to take care of yourself, right?
Yes.
Like what,
Right.
like, yeah, how are you setting yourself up for a more successful situation? God, yeah. And then if people have kids, then you're really fucking bored because you're at home with those
Yeah.
goddamn kids and you drive yourself nuts and you're like, oh, I hate this person. But like, maybe it's just like you miss all this other shit you gave up. Not speaking from experience at all.
I
Okay.
was waiting. I was
about to
waiting for the
say,
end of that.
How many kids do you have?
Only one, but I have feels like one feels like 1 million. We're a one and done a couple.
Well, what is the stat about children that getting married is the first most stressful thing for a relationship and having kids is the second, or is the kids the first?
It's
Like
got
the worst thing for a relationship, I think,
it's
is having
children.
kids.
Children
Yeah.
kill
Children?
relational
Yeah.
happiness and joy. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, until they're over age 5, right? Like it's something that like
Is that the age?
it's something like once your kids are over the age of 5, your chance of divorce plummets like 30% or something.
Okay.
Because that's how stressful it is to have kids under 5. I would vouch for that. I was gonna say thing with a puppy. I mean, I think puppies are hard too. Okay. All right. Ready for this one? Does permission to be clingy mean it's okay to tell someone I have a crush on them, even though they seem to be pulling away?
Yeah, why not?
You get to do whatever
Say
you
you
want in
seem
this
to be
life.
pulling away, right? You seem to be pulling away. I'm kind of into you. What's going on?
I love calling it out, right? Like calling
Yeah.
it
Yes.
out. I think, you know, people have more of an intuition in relationships than they give themselves credit for,
So true.
right? And they're just like, oh, I don't know if they're pulling away. If I say something and they're not pulling away, are they going to get, there's like this sense of like, I'm going to be gaslit. There's going to be some sort of saying like, oh, I'm not pulling away. What are you talking about? But I think it's important to call out, the things that you're feeling within your intuition in the relationship,
1,000%. Which is what's so interesting is like, usually what we're feeling is like correct. Like we're feeling
Yes.
something. It's a responsive experience. But what's funny is that oftentimes like the person that's anxious that their partner or the person they're dating is pulling away, maybe they're not pulling away, maybe they're like depressed, but we assign
Right.
meaning to whatever it is that we're picking up on that might not be accurate, which is why it's even more important to have a conversation, define the relationship, talk about whatever you need to talk about. So you're not just going off of these assumptions that are really just based on your own biased fears. But it's hard to do. I mean, I think people often assume that these conversations about asking for things or wanting to spend more time with somebody who doesn't necessarily meet you in the same way have to be these like huge, intensive, like scary conversations. And this is when humor is like so fucking important. And not to say don't take things seriously, but don't take things so seriously.
Mhm.
If you're gonna have a conversation like I have a crush on you, what's going on with you? It doesn't have to be so scary. You can throw a joke in there. You can be like, I really liked you, but I can't get it. You can do a little giggle and be like, I can't get a feel for like, what's going on? It does not have to be a drop down argument like you fucking asshole. Why didn't you respond to my, don't do that. Like make it fun, make it light. I'm not talking about death. It's not cancer. You really have to lighten some of this relational dread up. But people are really dreading these things.
Yes. And I think I feel like they let it build up for so
Yeah.
long that when it comes out in this like anger, there's like intensity of emotion behind it because they've been thinking about it and ruminating about it for so long.
Yeah. Or just like comes out weird and you're like, and
Yeah.
it doesn't even make sense.
Right?
And this is when
100%.
people often elicit the reaction they're trying to avoid, which is like something that I think is really interesting as well, is that, the longer we avoid having these conversations, if this person is pulling away and they're feeling maybe on the fence or they're depressed or whatever, and you're ignoring it, they might feel ignored and be like, well, they're not interested anyway. And then you end up pushing somebody away. So, that's why it's really best not to do some of the, I don't want to be clingy stuff, because sometimes if you express a lack of desire for somebody, you might convince them that you're not into them, and then they might not have a desire for you. So it's tough, but it's a must.
I think we should title this episode Be Clingy.
Be clingy and fart.
And fart.
Sorry, I keep going back to farts. I'm sorry.
Be clingy and fart.
I don't know what's wrong with me this morning. Bloated.
That is so perfect.
Okay, wait. We're gonna answer one more listener question, and then we're gonna play a game. Okay.
Ooh.
I'm falling for my friend, and I don't know if he feels the same. Afraid to ruin the friendship. Any advice?
Oh, that sounds really sweet.
It is sweet.
Falling for a friend. That's sweet. I mean, what are you gonna? I mean, you have to say something,
Have to, because you could. What if you didn't?
right? But also, how are you gonna be friends with them if you want to fuck them
Yeah. Right. Like
secretly?
the
At least put it out
relationship,
there.
the relationship has already changed.
Yeah,
You
that's
feel
super
differently.
sweet.
That is really sweet.
Yeah.
Do you remember that trend? I don't know if it was a TikTok trend. I apologize to drop TikTok into this conversation, but like where the person was like filming them
Oh my God,
saying
yes.
like, "Oh, I'm gonna kiss my best friend," and then you would like watch it happen. I don't know how much of those were staged.
Those were fake.
but I loved them. Moral of the story.
I think that was fake. I think that
Yeah.
was all fake.
Okay. Well,
But
I'm gonna pretend like it wasn't.
I think, and also this idea that it's gonna ruin the friendship, right? Like, you know
Yeah.
what? That I think it would take a lot, right? If you like have that much of a solid friendship, like maybe it would be awkward and maybe something you have to work through. But like it doesn't mean it has to ruin anything, right? So okay, so maybe be comfortable. They don't share the same feelings back. Then you'd figure out a way to go on. You take a little break. You know what I mean? You have to make sure you hang out in the group for a little. I don't know, whatever that looks like. But like, it doesn't have to be like just so freaking black and white all the time.
So true. And it's actually really common. Many people have feelings or are attracted to people that, you know, it's not reciprocated or it's a doctor or a therapist or like these things happen.
Yeah.
So it's not weird until you make it weird. But what?
I was just gonna say, I think if the friendship is strong enough, it's something you can work through.
Totally.
You know, so I think it's
Okay.
doable.
Yeah.
Okay, so we usually play this game called Calling BS, where we like, you know, take a myth and call some bullshit on it. But I kind
Ooh.
of feel like this entire episode was about that. So I have another idea of a game
Oh,
where
I
we
love games.
rapid fire some questions like fuck, marry, kill therapy theories.
Okay.
How do you
like
feel
that.
about, do you like that
Yeah,
one?
that sounds great.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's your first question of my
I'm
rapid
fully
fire.
erect.
I have a few others. Okay, I want to see it. I want you erect. I want you hard. Let's do this. Fuck, marry, kill therapy theories.
Okay.
Who you
I'm
want to?
ready.
Okay, ready? It's CBT.
Kill.
Love that.
Okay, Freud.
Fuck.
Oh, psychodynamic.
Yeah. That was the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Well,
Or
okay,
marry. I mean, I
yeah.
guess I'm if we want to talk about theories, I'm more heavily into psychodynamic theories.
Okay.
So I would marry a psychodynamic man.
Yeah.
Okay, relational.
Marry.
DBT.
I'm just kidding.
DBT.
Fuck. I mean, kill. I hate
Kill DBT, really?
Yeah, I don't know. I think because when I was younger, it was like thrusted upon me because I was like a cutter, and they were like, "You need to do DBT," and I'm
Right.
like, "I'm miserable. What do you
yes.
mean?"
Right.
Oh, yes. Yeah, they do love DBT for cutting. Big
Yeah,
One. Self-harm, DBT, got it. Dialect, yeah.
Yeah,
right.
right,
I'm like, maybe you
immediately.
should tell my father to stop yelling at me. I don't need DBT.
Right.
So I'm biased.
Right.
Okay.
Fair.
Well, so then I do family systems theory. It sounds like
Mary.
Acceptance and commitment therapy.
Oh my God. I can't even know. I don't think I would be able to tell you what that even is. I know
Right,
what it
okay.
is, but I don't know what it is. Like, if you tell me what it is, and I'll be like, oh, yeah, right.
it's
What
like
is it?
accepting and committing to stuff. It's the number one thing they use for people to give up smoking and like take
It's almost like
Oh.
accepting your feelings rather than like pushing them away,
Yeah.
which is like what we're talking about
Okay.
anyway.
Sure. Okay.
Okay.
I would date it.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's good.
Yeah,
Get to
add some
know it.
dating into it, right?
Yeah, I
Why
would
are we
need to
going
get
to
I need to get to know it first.
Right, I love
Yeah,
that.
fuck, marry, kill. Why isn't it like be in a domestic partnership?
Right. Oh, it's a great
Try things
question.
out for a little bit. Okay.
I don't know.
Most unhealthy TV couple.
Excuse me. What?
Most unhealthy TV couple.
Oh. I don't know. Who? Most unhealthy TV couple.
You could
I
do
don't know.
movie too.
Movie too.
What am I watching? Oh, have you been watching The Dragon? Whatever.
No, what is
Wait, is
that?
that the new
Well,
Game
I don't
of
want to be.
Thrones?
It's gonna be. It's gonna be a spoiler.
Oh, don't toss.
I'm not gonna
It's
watch it. You can
the-
tell me.
The princess and her uncle.
Oh, I did hear there's a
Oh.
lot of incest.
Yeah.
Lot
Which
of
for the
yeah.
time was okay, but
Yes.
Right.
Okay,
Great
so that's your
example.
okay. How about best example of a TV or movie? Healthy couple.
I'm like going back to the dragon one. I'm like, no. I don't even know. I don't know. One of you say.
Healthy.
For best is really fucking hard because they're all pretty bad.
Yeah,
Okay.
I also like watch TV and forget it. So I'm like, I don't know what
Okay.
happened.
I will say for best couple, I'm gonna say uh, from The Office, Phyllis and Vance, the refrigeration guy. Like it has to be a
I
side
never
couple that
watched
is
The Office. I know.
Wow.
Everyone says it's so great. You're like,
wait.
we're not friends anymore. You're like, I don't want to cling. I don't want to cling to you. You can't
Right,
fart for me.
right.
This is
We're
this
done.
is over.
Start
Don't you
taking your
just want to
gas X
fart and
again.
watch The Office?
Well,
No,
maybe
now
I
you
will
don't.
later.
What's your
I'll post my story.
What's your favorite show ever? Even though you forget everything.
My favorite show ever.
Ever. Like
Oh
what
my
would you
God.
watch
I'm so
again
bad
and
at
again?
these questions.
I'm sorry.
When someone's like, what's your favorite this? I have to go through all the shows that I've watched. I watched Scandal during the pandemic, and I think it was the context of being locked away, but it really did it for me.
Yeah.
I mean, it had to. That's how I
Yes.
adapted.
Right. Something
It
had
had
to
to be
Right.
my favorite show, but it's not my favorite show. I mean, my favorite show, I guess, of all time would probably have to be That. Absolutely fabulous. Have you
Okay,
seen
all
it?
right.
Wonderful.
Okay, then we'll end with calling BS. What's some bullshit? Number one myth you want to dispel. Call some bullshit on something in the field.
Number one myth. I mean, the idea of the one, I can't with that. It drives me crazy.
Love
Life's not
that.
a Disney movie. And we're
Done.
soulmates. I just don't like it.
We don't like it.
We don't
Down.
like it. We're not
Kill
into
it.
it.
Kill it
You're
for
fired.
sure.
Okay.
We don't need it.
Todd, thank you for coming on Shrink Chicks today. What a blast we had with you. We hope that you farted up all night long.
I will think of you as I am
Thank you
farting.
so
while
much.
you do.
Yeah. My dog might not appreciate that.
So honored.
Oh, she'll get over it. She'll just watch you have sex a while. Okay. Where can people find you, learn more from you? You have such an amazing style. We love you. We adore you. Where can people find you?
I am at Your Diagnosins on Instagram. And I had so much fun too. I love both of you. I've been following you before I started my Instagram. So I'm really excited to connect with the two of you. And thank you so much for having me on. This was fun.
We'll have to hang out one time next time you're in New York when
Yeah,
it's cold
when you're
and
in
you're
New York,
bitching
let
about
us
being back on the
know.
East Coast.
Yeah,
We'll
do you go to New York
we'll be in New
often?
York next week. Yes.
Oh, what are you doing?
We're on a
Another
podcast.
Ooh,
Yeah.
okay.
So we go, but we like both have family in New York. My mom's from New York. It's only a 2-hour train ride.
Yeah, it's very quick.
It's easy. So you tell
Okay,
us.
yeah, I would
we
love
will
to meet
we'll go
IRL.
out and
That would
hang
be
out.
so fun.
That would
I
be
need
so
therapist
fun.
friends. I don't have enough therapist friends.
Yeah,
we will be your therapist friends.
We will be your therapist friends.
Please.
We will.
Oh, we would love that.
Okay, we can be a clingy trio.
Also,
Yeah.
you need to tell me what you're doing with your hair because it's just incredible.
You do have good hair.
Oh, I didn't do anything to it today. But
It's just now.
It's from yesterday.
It's so good.
Second day hair is sometimes some of the best.
It's the second day hair.
Yeah.
There's a lot of product in it.
Yeah. Oh God, it looks amazing.
Amazing. Well, to find Todd, follow him. He has also you have an amazing online program that you do that people can work with you. I think do you also do coaching as well?
I'm not taking on any new clients.
No clients, but
coaching,
people could do your online program.
Yeah, I have an online program for love and sex.
Perfect. Love and sex.
I do monthly sessions.
Do Todd sessions. He will blow your mind. We hope you enjoyed today's episode of Shrink Chicks, and we also hope that you send it to a friend. We hope you rate, review, subscribe. 5 stars. If not, we're gonna fart all over you. And you can always watch us on YouTube. Follow us at Shrink Chicks. Work with one of our amazing clinicians at the therapy group. If you are located in Massachusetts, New York, New Jersey, Delaware, Pennsylvania, Florida, California, we would love to get you connected with an amazing clinician. And don't forget that to grow yourself, you got to know yourself. We'll see you next week.